Oh my goodness. Okay. So, yeah, I was going to introduce everybody, wasn't I? All our friends here since Marion's here. So, Deb is a coach with us. She's a lead coach. She's going to be presenting with me. We are a dynamic duo, if you can't tell already. Jessica is a coach, and she's also our director of operations or operations manager. What are you?
However you want to say it, Russell.
Great. She's the director of operations. Um, and she's going to run the slides. And then Marianne, who is a coach and lives in Ireland, um, she's going to be answering questions. So let's get to it. We're really excited that you're here and with us. Um, and today we're going to look at a few things. One, updating your message. Who's talking in the background? That's so weird. Okay. Anyway, that was a side. There was a huge somebody in the background. Okay, then how to increase funding from your current newsletter list. Important things to consider when connecting with churches. Creating a timeline and plans for fundraising on your home ministry assignment or HMA, which is probably what we're going to refer to it as. Implementing a follow-up strategy. So we want to hear from you. Marianne is here to kind of facilitate questions. There is a question section. So instead of putting questions in the chat, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A. So you can hit that for questions. Marianne will either answer them via text or we'll answer them live. Let's see. We're going to have a few poll questions throughout the webinar to get feedback, so make sure we answer those. Our slides, I think, are going to be going out via email after, and the recording will be going on YouTube. So no worries there. Again, if you have not filled out the questionnaire for, where's the chat? So I'm going to share it. If you've not filled out the questionnaire for today's webinar, do that. It's in the chat. It's going to help you tremendously towards the end as we start planning. Okay. So go ahead and do that. Deb, you're up. Let's
Okay,
get.
while you're doing that, we're gonna first start about updating your messaging. So there's a lot, as you know, that goes into planning for your home assignment in your passport country. You've got to purchase the plane tickets, you got to line up all your church visits, any vacations you want to take, time away with your family and your friends, who is going to keep the dog while you're away, and more. So we want to encourage you to step out of those details for a minute, though, and we want you to think through one very, very, very important question that's actually going to shape your entire trip. The question is, what is the purpose of this trip? Are you going to be fundraising? Are you going to be visiting partners, visiting with family and friends, maybe resting, hopefully resting, something else? Probably all of those things to some degree. So that's why it's really important to answer that question. So once we do, then we can create a plan to maximize our time and to reach our goals. So if you spent any time with us at all, you know that at our core, we believe that fundraising is ministry. So we're going to assume that all of you are going to be meeting with and ministering to your current partners, also new potential partners, churches, and groups. So getting there and all the details surrounding the planning of your trip are important, but equally important is what you're actually going to be communicating. So before you begin reconnecting with partners and approaching new people, you need to really think about what's happened and what's happening now. So I'm gonna list some questions. They're gonna be in the email, and they're also gonna be on the slides here. You may want to write them down, but like I said, they're gonna be coming to you. So here we go. We're gonna work through these questions. First question: what has God done? You know, what's happened? Are there some stats that you could potentially share? What stories might God be bringing to mind of life transformation? How can you share a story of success?
Hey,
Um,
Ed, this is so key because a lot of times when you think about what has happened, you think, what did I do? Like, I've got to prove that I did something. That's not what this is about. It's what did God do? So just keep that in mind. Let's take the pressure off of what did you do, because I'm not sure that matters well, it doesn't matter nearly as much as what God did. So just keep that in mind as you answer that question, because it's easy to fall back.
yeah, and it's also tempting for people to be like, well, there weren't any salvations, there weren't any baptisms, so God didn't do anything. Not true. Conversations that you've had that have moved somebody from point A to point B, or if somebody shows up at your English club, those things, like, there are people that are coming. So talk about what God's doing in other people's hearts. Okay. Second thing, how has your mission and vision changed over the years? I mean, likely it has, right? You've been there probably for a while. So how have things changed? And then thirdly, what are you asking God to do in this next term of service? So for example, has your vision expanded and maybe you need to rent a community center, like maybe you need space. So maybe we need to rent a community center, or maybe we saw that the felt need now isn't actually this, but it's this. So now we're trying to offer English classes, or maybe we're trying to start a feeding program. So what are you asking God to do through this next term of service? What's your vision? And then as that vision is carried out, what difference would doing this make? What difference is this going to make in someone's life? So now that you know what you're going to be sharing, next think about who is your audience and where are you going to be sharing. So some possibilities might include being up front in a church. It could be speaking to missions committees. Hopefully it'll include some individuals, but you also might be invited to speak at a school, like a Christian school, a Sunday school class, maybe somebody's Bible study, or maybe somebody's going to host a small group for you. Lots of different possibilities for you to speak.
We've had a request.
Oh,
Thank you. We've had a
I didn't see it.
we have had a request for you to slow down.
Okay,
She's
I
from
will.
Boston. She doesn't know. She
Fine.
doesn't know any better.
I don't know any better. I don't know slow. We go wicked fast. All right, I will. Sorry.
Could you also pull your screen down? You're driving me crazy. Your head looks so little.
Looks so little. What do you mean?
Pull your screen down a little bit because your head's like at the bottom of the screen.
That
Yeah, I mean
or the
that's
other way? That
no,
way or the other way?
that was the right way.
That was the right way. Okay.
I'm telling you, these hosts are crazy. They're crazy. Okay, keep going.
Okay. Well, I'm coming to you from Panera. So, because
Oh, that's what the
internet,
noise was. Okay,
it
got
could
it.
be me. Yeah, sorry. Um, okay. So, all right, now
Slow
we've got
down.
what we're gonna say.
Slow down.
I know I'm recapping. We got
Okay.
what we're gonna say. We've got like who we're gonna speak to. Now we need to think about what's the purpose of each one of these meetings. So we need to think about what our goals are. Is the goal a financial goal? Or is it to create awareness? Or maybe it's to encourage the people that we're meeting with. Asking yourself, is this a current partner that needs a report? Maybe you also want to ask that current partner for an increase. Or is this a new potential partner who might need to hear your whole message because they don't have a context for any of it? So knowing who your audience is and taking the time to tailor that messaging appropriately is going to do two things. It's going to meet them where they are. It's also going to bless them. Thirdly, it's going to help you to manage your expectations and to reach your goals.
Okay, so we've worked with a lot of experience. When I say a lot, I mean a lot of experienced fundraisers over the years, and their primary concern is that they don't have enough contacts. But once we connect, we usually discover you have a whole list of contacts that you haven't thought of intentionally, and that's your newsletter list. Now, if you've already done that, there are lots of other strategies, but if you haven't, that's a great place to look. So you answered this in the questionnaire, but let's take a poll. And we want to know how many people are on your newsletter list. 100 to 250, 250 to 5, 5 to 750. We didn't have an under 100 option. So if you have under 100, let's add to that. Y'all, look at this. Well, you can't see it yet, but I mean, there's a lot of you have a lot of contacts. Let's see. Okay, let's close that poll. And let's see the results. I mean, there's just a lot of contacts there. I mean, let's see if half of you have 100 to 250. We have a few people with over 750 on their newsletter list. Incredible. Okay. So
Hey, can I add something? So a lot of times when people come back and they speak at churches, people jump on their newsletter list because they have a sign-up sheet. Make sure on that sign-up sheet, if you're going to speak at a lot of churches, that you have a column that says church affiliation, because you may or may not know where they came from. That's what we find with a lot of people that come back. They're like, I don't know this person. So just
So
saying.
with that, those lists in mind, with your newsletter list in mind, think about how many of them are currently partnering. Okay. Typically when we ask this question, you might identify 20, 40, 60 people from that list, who aren't, sorry, 20 or 40 that are current financial partners, and the rest are not. You know, if that's the case for you, we've automatically identified dozens of people that you could talk to about financial partnership, potentially hundreds. It's a great group to start with, and these people are connected to the ministry and they've shown interest in hearing about what's going on. If you want to get more specific in your segmenting, go to your email client, your MailChimp, Constant Contact, see who opens your email, and start there. Who opens your emails? And of those, who is not currently giving? Because then you know that they have some level of interest. Okay, now let's look at social media contacts. How many Facebook and Instagram friends or followers do you have combined? 1 to 5, 5 to 1,000. This is going to be great. Deb doesn't have Facebook.
No, I do. You just made fun of me because I have like, I don't know, what do
Oh,
they say?
she's
Like
got
I have
100
50
friends.
followers or something. Yeah, 100 something. I don't
She
even
calls
remember.
them followers. She doesn't even know they're called friends,
I don't know.
right?
I don't post anything. I just look at stuff.
Yeah. Y'all, I'm not here to shame you for only having 100 to 500 friends on your Facebook page, but let's get networking, easy way to network. Just start adding friends, man. Marianne, I'm always looking for a smile from you to see if what I said is kind of funny. And apparently that,
Hilarious. It's so
okay.
funny.
So she says so funny. Okay, we're gonna end that poll and let's see the results. Okay, I'm in the over 1,500 category. I'm just saying. Um, who says anyway. So lots and lots of contacts here. Okay, right? Typically, we'll look at social media contacts. We can identify hundreds of not current financial partners. I was asked to coach a couple, Megan and Deepta, and in our first session, they told me they had no contacts left. And then by the first session, we'd identified 400 social media contacts they had to reach out to. By the end of 3 months in our coaching, they were 110% funded just through social media contacts, and they still had more people who were praying about what they might give. As Deb likes to say, bruh, that is on fire. On fire. So she doesn't say that. We just came up with that. So for the time that we have today, let's start by segmenting the names on your newsletter list. We're going to segment them into 4 groups. So segment A, current partners. These are the people that we already know they're interested in financial partnership, but there's still more that we can invite them to do. The first thing we can invite them to do is consider increasing their giving. if someone has partnered with you for at least a year, it's perfectly acceptable to show them your gratitude for the partnership and ask them to consider increasing for the coming year, sharing that vision that Deb talked about. What are we asking God to do in this next season? Another way that they can help is by connecting you with friends and family. Great way to do this is by hosting a get together in person or virtually, but not everyone can host or is cut out to host. So even just a simple introduction through email can be helpful. We prefer advocacy over referrals. Asking people for a list of names is not near as effective as having them personally introduce you. We can help you with a very intentional advocate strategy if you're interested in that. This doesn't have to be a large group. It can just be one or two people, and make sure that they understand it's not about them introducing you to a ton of people. It's just the right people. So one or two or three people that they think might have the same interest in the kind of ministry that God has called you to and that they're a part of. Segment B, people who have given in the past, either one time or ongoing. This is a great group to connect with because they've already shown interest in a financial partnership at some point. The greatest indicator of someone's inclination to give is their giving in the past. So you might have people who give monthly, and we're going to ask them to increase. You might have people who just gave once, or they give one or two times throughout the year, every year. So let's see. Some may have not been aware that they could partner monthly if they've only given once or twice in the past. Whereas others who did partner may have stopped giving due to a card error. We see that a lot. And they were never simply followed up with. Maybe life circumstances got difficult. They had to stop their partnership, but time has passed and difficult circumstances have changed. Segment C is everyone else on your list who hasn't financially partnered in any capacity, but you'd like to ask them to consider. Even if they said no in the past, no many times or a lot of the times means not right now. So let's go back, let's revisit. The last segment covers people that you aren't necessarily ready to ask. You might want to build a relationship with, create some awareness. But we really, when I was reading through this, Deb, and saw segment D, I'm not sure I'd be afraid necessarily to ask people that you don't know very well. Actually, I know I wouldn't be afraid to ask. So just consider, is this somebody that I need to create more awareness with, or build a relationship with? Or is this somebody that I feel like God is saying, hey, I prepared them? And a lot of times you're not going to find that out until you ask. So those are our segments.
Yep, very true. And the reason that we suggest segmenting your newsletter list is because, like I mentioned before, it's great if you can tailor your communication to those specific people in those specific groups. So with all of these segments, we want to encourage you, first and foremost, pray. Pray for each person. Pray that God aligns their heart with the mission, gives them a passion and a burden for these people and the ministry, and pray for wisdom to know how to approach them, when to ask them, what to ask for. Remember, we make our plans, but it's the Lord who establishes our steps. And then send an email, or if you can send a physical letter, that reminds them of the needs of the area that in your area of service, and then also the good work that God is doing there. And we're going to share an example of one of these letters with you in the email that comes after the webinar. All right, so with segment A, these people are your current partners. You could say something like, thank you so much for your partnership in bringing the hope of Christ to the lost in Guatemala. I'd like for you to pray about increasing your partnership for the coming year, and also help us find new partners through your family, your friends, and your church. All right, segment B. These are your past partners. You could say, thank you for your partnership in bringing the hope of Christ to the lost in Europe. I'd like for you to consider partnering again in this coming year. Segment C, the people who haven't given in the past, but who might be interested in a partnership, you could say, thank you for your interest in what God's doing in Southeast Asia. I'd like for you to pray about becoming a part of the work in Asia through a prayer and financial partnership. And then with segment D, those people that Russell was talking about that you might need to strengthen a relationship with, you could say, thank you for your interest in what God's doing in Los Angeles. I'd like to get together to give you a personal update on the ministry and also spend some time getting to know you and your family. However, I do want to add that if you get connected with people from segment D and they bring up finances, go ahead and talk about it. They've opened up the door for that conversation. Likely it's because God's moving in their hearts. And so, go ahead and share the information and ask them if they'd be interested in considering a financial partnership. Don't be so focused on not talking about finances that you miss an opportunity to invite them to give because they're asking for that. All right, so a day or two after your letters arrive, if at all possible, you're going to want to begin calling people or at least emailing, actually preferably texting or Facebook messaging, whatever you have, to ask if they've received the letter and if they're interested in meeting. Make sure that you ask if they're interested because they might not be, and that's okay. So be careful not just to assume that they want to meet by saying, hey, when can you meet? It's important to, when you're securing a meeting, to follow up. Most people don't like to follow up, but you need to follow up. Ideally, you want to follow up with those that you haven't heard from or those who haven't made a firm decision every 3 days. That's what we recommend. That could be different for you, but every 3 days communicates a sense of urgency. And that follow-up could be over the phone. It could be over text. It could be an email. It could be WhatsApp. It could be Facebook. So cycle through the different options that you have for those people, but still be reaching out every 3 days because that communicates a sense of the urgency of a response. Don't just sit back and expect them to do the work for you. And so to help with that, we're going to give you a follow-up flow chart that our clients have found very helpful in securing meetings and also in the follow-up stage after a meeting. And so that's also going to be in the email that we sent out with you.
All right. We're going to shift into talking about churches. So let's do a quick poll on that. I love polls, Deb. How have you connected with pastors in the past? You can choose more than one: Facebook, email, phone call, text, letter, or in person. I'm always interested. Like, let's see. Deb, can you see these results as they're coming in? Okay. Sometimes we guess together. Because we don't see them. I don't know. I'm not super surprised with the results. Okay, let's end that poll. And I'm surprised that a few of you have reached out through Facebook. Love to hear about your experience with that. Reaching out via email, nice. Following up with a phone call, always. Text, amazing, fantastic. Physical letter, I think for pastors, I mean, I think that's really appropriate. I mean, you're really reaching out to somebody with a specific role. So I think that's nice. It's, professional. In person, absolutely. You got to be sitting down with pastors, or, the head of a missions committee or somebody like that. All right. When you reach out to a church, we want to make sure it's as personal as possible because you're likely not the only missionary that's on home assignment. And I like to say churches are people too, or pastors are people too. Um, they're not just an organization. So we want to start by finding out who the best person is to contact. And then if at all possible, we want to call them. If you're overseas currently, that may be through You could actually make calls through Zoom, WhatsApp, FaceTime. You can actually make calls through Instagram and Facebook Messenger. And so you may want to give that a shot, actually. Another option, if you're overseas, something called Line 2, Line, and the number 2, allows you to make international calls and unlimited texting for $16 a month. Then follow up by emailing the pastor, letting them know you tried to call, that you'd like to visit the church while you're home, and then share whatever your request is. Here are several options you might want to think about requesting. Sharing with the church congregation during one or all of their services. You could request to put up a table in the foyer, in the foyer, with ministry info like brochures, prayer cards, newsletter signups, lists, etc. I haven't been to a church. Well, that's not true. I guess a lot of churches have foyers. Anyway, a lot of the churches that I've visited don't, but maybe it's like the welcome area. We can say that. You could also ask to be connected with small groups like a Sunday school class, prayer group, other small groups. However, be aware that a lot of small groups take a break over the summer, so this may limit your options to make scheduling more difficult during that time. But if the pastor is willing to connect you, having them send an email introducing you and the ministry, and then having you follow up right away is the best way to do that to the small group leader. You could reach out directly, but that reference from the pastor goes a long way. And if you share with a small group, recommend having response cards for each person to fill out. It's a great thing to have at every seat. And we recommend that it has an option for people to mark, I'm not interested at this time. The idea is that you're getting a response from every person and you know exactly what action to take in follow-up. And we have we've done this a lot and have specific ways to maximize those small group meetings, because sometimes you can just go away and it fall flat because you don't know how to invite as well as follow up. So love to help you with that. You may want the opportunity to speak to the missions committee about new, ongoing, or increased financial partnership, or their consideration in a one-time gift. If you were not able to attend our webinar on building church partnerships, someone's putting that link in the chat. Another thing you can ask is to be included on a prayer request list if they have one. This is a great way to raise awareness about the ministry and its needs, and also keeps the church connected.
All right, now we're going to switch gears and actually talk about creating your plan for your trip. So it's really important for us to begin setting up our fundraising plans way before, because we know how crazy it gets actually when you're ready to go. So if you're planning to arrive, let's say for this example, in the summertime, we know how incredibly busy people are in the summer and how little time they have over the summer. So we want to start creating our plans and arranging those meetings way before we visit the different locations where our financial partners live. So if you haven't been taking notes so far, I want to encourage you to begin, because we're going to walk through what you need to do and when you need to do it. So open up notes on your phone or on your computer, or grab a pen and a piece of paper, and let's begin writing out our timeline. All right, so remember at the beginning when we asked, yeah.
Just so you know, because you may not have looked at it, in the questionnaire that they filled out, they have responded with when does their home assignment or focused time of fundraising start, and how long will that be?
Okay, great. I haven't looked at that, so great. Okay, so that's good to know. So remember at the beginning, we talked about what's the purpose of this trip? Like, what are our priorities here? Are we going to do fundraising? Is it going to be family time, vacation? We want to keep this in mind as we're creating our plan. So you guys all know how long you have. Let's just say for this example, we have 8 weeks for home assignment and we've blocked off 2 weeks to hang out with our grandparents, which is awesome because I'm a grandparent and you want to spend at least 2 weeks with your grandpeople.
I think that's
Maybe
2 weeks for the
on the,
grandparents. I
yeah,
think
2 weeks on the front, 2 weeks on the end. Like,
that's
give me lots of weeks.
nobody
No,
wants.
it's not. Well, grandparents love that. Anyway, just saying. All right, let's just say for this example, we got 2 weeks for grandparents, and then we have 1 week of vacation, and we have 8 weeks total. That leaves us just 5 weeks left. Like, that's almost half of your time. So how could just this thought process right now just impact your fundraising goals and your plans for this trip? So ideally, if you have 4 to 8 weeks, that's not a lot of time. So you really need to steward it well. I think that's what this is all about, is stewarding your time well, maximizing it. Planning all of these things, being intentional, is really going to help cut through the tension and cut through the angst that you might be feeling because there's a lot going on.
Yeah. And we recognize that most home assignments are more than 8 weeks. This is just an example. What I love about planning in these big blocks is that when you're on vacation, you don't have to worry about fundraising. You know that there's a plan. You don't have to worry. You don't have to try to fit it in on vacation to send emails. You know that you have a focused time of fundraising and you can just set that aside, right? I think also it's important when you have these bigger, like let's say you have a 6 month or a 1 year home assignment, it can get away from you and you can put it off and say, oh, I'll start a little bit later. I'll start a little bit later. So before you get going, and even on a longer home assignment, if it's a year, sitting down at the very beginning, once you land or once you kind of caught a breath, and planning that out. But keep in mind, with churches especially, you got to plan pretty far in advance, okay? So I want to give you an example of what a short HMA could look like. This is actually an example from one of our former colleagues. This is schedule and what it looked like one summer when he and his family went back to the US. They only had 3 weeks, and one of those was for vacation. And in order to make it work, they had a lot of group meetings with current partners, which is fine. We really encourage individual meetings as well, or as kind of your foundation for that. When you look at the schedule, the example, the longer blocks were all group meetings, and they utilized that time to share what the father was doing in Germany. A lot of these people were current partners, and they wanted a place to be able to hug their necks, thank them for their partnership, and tell them how God was at work. And potentially ask that group for an increase if most of them were current partners. The smaller blocks were meetings with individuals and couples, which is their segment A. The people they wanted to dive into more specifics of what ministry could look like together. The first week was mainly group meetings, and the second week was mostly individuals. That's how they broke that up. They divided their time for individual meetings between new partners and current partners. They wanted to ask for an increase. You can't see it here, but because of time constraints and childcare, he and his wife actually took some meetings separately. She did meetings with people that she was closer to, and he did meetings with his contacts. It's optimal when everyone can meet together, but this can be a good option if you want to meet in person, but you have some of those constraints. The point, again, with this is intentional planning. It's actually your friend, especially if a really long one. HMA, as I mentioned, time goes by so fast, and before you know it, you'll be packing your bags and headed back to the field.
Yes, you will. So we are curious now. You guys filled out that assessment. So we want to know, in additional monthly partnerships, if you don't know exactly what it is, just take your best guess. Are you needing to raise under $500 a month, $500 to $1,000 a month, 1,000 to 2,000, or 2,000 plus? Or I'm only raising one-time gifts.
While they're taking that poll, I have a couple of questions, if that's okay,
Yes.
after we talk about the poll.
Sure.
All right, let's end that poll. Okay,
For
so
most people between 1,000 and 2,000.
yeah, yeah, you know, com completely doable, especially over a longer home assignment. But
Mhm.
again, um, there's really no need to drag it out. Boy, you could really make headway or complete that in just a couple of weeks of really intentional or a month of really intentional focused fundraising, depending on your strategy. Um, so let's see, $2,000 a month or more. Yeah. If you are raising more than $1,000 a month, I mean, even if you're raising less, um, we would definitely love to help you. We have some kind of a shorter term packages for people who are experienced fundraisers. One is 4 months. It's the first month is weekly sessions. Sorry, the first 6 weeks are weekly sessions, and after that, it's every other week. And then we have a 6 month that's similar, depending on how long your home assignment is or how long you want to focus on fundraising. So, questions, Marianne?
Yep, got a great question here about table setups in the foyer of a church after service. What are some good materials to have at the table, and what kind of information is appropriate to collect from people in this setting? I thought that was a great question. I had some insights and I went ahead and typed my answer. Why don't you guys go ahead and share what you think?
Well, what did you type in?
Well, I typed in prayer cards, obviously. That's a given. Any information that you might have on your ministry or the country of service. So if you have a brochure, maybe a brochure on your missions organization, any kind of information on the country where you're serving, response cards, and or clipboard. I mean, I kind of go back and forth there, but I would say response cards are really great to have with the contact information of the person, a QR code for giving if they want to be on the newsletter list, whether they're wanting to sit down with you and have a cup of coffee to hear about more about your ministry, giving intentions, that kind of thing.
Yeah. If you don't know, and Deb and Marianne may, you know, think this is not a great idea, depending on the information that you need. But did you know if you have an iPhone and the other person has an iPhone and you just hold them together like this, you exchange contact information. You just have to hold it there for a few seconds. You exchange contact information. You could do that right there. You could, in their contact info, you could put the church that you were at, something along those lines. Deb's smirking. I think she has an issue with
It's
this.
just so wild. No, it's just so wild to think about. I have no issue with it. I think it's fantastic.
So you could do that if you want to, um, and looks super cool. You're like, this missionary really has it together. Goodness. Okay, there you have it. What else?
Okay, so we have
Wait, oh, I was gonna respond too. I love what you said, and even some of those QR codes, making those plastic frames, that stand up from the Dollar Tree and putting your QR code in there, so people don't have to do this, but they can just be walking by and they can grab it this way. Or I also tell my clients to think through the five senses when you're thinking about a table. Because you want people to engage with the table, right? And so you can make if you don't have an updated prayer card, like update that before you come home. But you could also make a banner like Vistaprint and Snapfish and Shutterfly. All of those are pretty inexpensive. So you could make a banner to grab people over. You could have food. Like who doesn't love food? One person,
Sam's
I
Club
loved
or
this idea.
Costco?
What?
Like Sam's Club or Costco, just stop by and get a sample. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And I had some people from Asia and they got Pocky. Like you can get Pocky at Costco and just get some Pocky. So that's like a snack in Asia that we now have here, but we didn't used to. But somebody did, they were from Asia and they did a chopstick challenge. I thought this was really fun, like a good hands-on activity for kids. So they had like a bowl of gummy bears and some chopsticks and they raced. Like there were a couple bowls of gummy bears and then the empty bowls down here. And they were like try to get the gummy bear with the chopstick down to the other end. So anyway, like I love all of Marianne's ideas and then just think through other smells or sounds or things that you can do hands-on to get people over to your table.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that their own missions organization might have materials for you. We
yeah.
had a banner that we just got from them. And yeah, so definitely ask what resources are available to you from your org. One comment that we had, and then one more question. So one comment was, I have heard that too many churches is not recommended as it's harder to communicate. Maybe any comments on that? Having too many churches?
I think you just need to decide, there's a couple of other factors in there. Where are these churches? Because, you might have one in California, one in Massachusetts, one in Ohio. Like, you need to figure out how many churches in these different locations, because you don't want to be taking your entire HMA to travel to multiple places. The other thing is, sometimes churches are higher capacity. So if you have a lot of churches, and when a leadership changes in a church, sometimes they will drop you. If a church, is partnering at $300, $400, $500 a month, and you have multiples at that and they drop you, then that's a significant amount that you need to redo. But I mean, those would be some of my thoughts around
Yeah.
how many churches is too many churches.
Yeah, I also think that expectations needs to be set too. If it is a low maintenance type church where they're not expecting you to come visit all the time and come and, do all of these, I don't know, relational things with them. Of course, you want to be relational, but if you have the expectation that it's like, you know what, we're not going to be able to come visit, we're going to have Zoom calls with you, once a quarter, that type of thing, that might be helpful just to have those expectations on the forefront.
Yeah.
Hey,
Also,
Marianne, I think we might, go ahead, Russell.
zooming from the field with a church, if they're technologically savvy, you can be just put on a screen during a service and answer questions or share, or make a video and send, and that feels personal enough for that church. Okay, we probably need to get going.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we might need to save the rest of the questions for the end. We'll stay on as long as we need to answer questions. But I want to honor people's time here. So let's keep going, and then we can take some more questions at the end. All right. So if you don't know what your budget is, make sure you make time for that if this week, if not very, very soon, so that you can share that with your potential partners
And
or
I
your
need
partners.
to interject this too. In your questionnaire, you had 3 questions up front, which were, what's your monthly funding target, which we've answered. Over the last 12 months, the average amount received in donations per month, the average amount of expenses, and then the balance of your current ministry account. If you do some calculations, you'll be able to see at the rate that you're going, how long you have before you run out of funding in your ministry account. And I think that's also important to know as far as urgency and timeline go. Okay, Deb,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah. And you can even share some of these goals. I mean, not like the balance in your account, but sharing what in a newsletter or an email, hey, we're looking to raise an additional $1,000 a month in monthly partnerships while we're home, or we're looking for 10 new partners, or we're looking for 2 new churches, something like that. All right. So first thing that we want to write down are some dates. So start with a date that is 3 weeks before you begin before you want to start meeting with people. And you're going to have to do this for each location that you're going to visit. Okay. And then, you need to start, that's the date that you're going to need to start calling or texting or emailing these people to set up meetings. The second date is 4 weeks before you arrive. So this is when people need to receive a personal letter or an email from you asking if they'd be interested in meeting while you're in town to hear about the ministry and consider a partnership. So take note that this is when it needs to actually be in their hands. So if you're mailing letters, which is recommended if possible because it's more personal, write down the date that those actually need to get in the mailboxes. And you may be overseas, and that's fine. Somebody local could print and mail these for you, or you could use a service like prayerletters.com or russellloveshandwrite.io. We always recommend those 2. Then you need to write down the date that you need to actually start working on this letter. Some of us are amazing writers and can do this really quickly. For others of us, it may take a week or 2 weeks. And remember, we got to proofread this. Russell loves AI, and so do I. So AI is your friend in this situation. Make sure that you're not sharing personal details, but put it through AI. See what AI comes up with because it's really good. Okay, so we need to make sure that we have time to do that. And then one more thing is we want to send out before this letter comes, we want to actually send out a general newsletter that lets people know, hey, we're coming back for a visit, and kind of lets them know the locations of where you're going to be. Make sure when you do that, that you're expressing gratitude and that you're also connecting people to the impact that the ministry is having. All right, Russell, why don't you talk about networking?
Okay, very quickly, for those for those of you who have already thought through your newsletter list and you know you are going to have to make some new connections, then you may need to utilize your network. And I'm going to kind of skip a little bit of this, Deb, but 4 groups, family, friends, small groups, and churches. Ask some of your biggest cheerleaders to connect you with people that they know, their family, their friends, their small groups, or the churches that they know. You could also ask a church pastor to help connect you with people in the church, individuals in the church. So keep that in mind as you want to expand your contact list.
Yeah, okay. And so just as important as, well, I know we're like, you're drinking from a fire hose right now. You can watch it back later, or look at the notes. Just as important as creating that pre-planning trip is your post communication, the post-trip communication. So let's assume that you guys are all awesome, which you are, and you've executed the most amazing trip possible. What's next? We want to encourage you to create this post-trip communication plan. And if you've been with us for any length of time, that follow-up is just as integral as planning and executing the trip. And it can be really intimidating because we feel like people are going to be upset if we reach out to them, or we think, hey, we're bugging them, or it's going to ruin this relationship. We can feel awkward sometimes. But you know what? Why do we do it? Why do we do it? Because follow-up is helpful. They need you. Think about it. People are you're really busy. So other people are not really busy. And so fundraising may be in your top 3 things to do, but you know what? It's not necessarily the top 3 things for our partners. In fact, it probably doesn't even make their list. So it's really helpful if we view follow-up as helping people do what they said they wanted to do. So when I was speaking with a client about what she learned in the fundraising process, I love what she said. It's super profound. Remember this. She said, you know what? I learned people want to help me, but they need me to help them help me. So profound. So one of the best things that you can do is to be sure to end your meetings with an expectation that you're going to follow up with them. That way, they have a clear path in how and when to sign up, which helps them to do what they want to do. And here's the other thing, it's going to save you time, and it's also going to reduce your anxiety. All right. Do we have time for this poll question?
No.
No? Okay. All right. We're not going to ask this poll question. We do recommend that you follow up every 3 days for 2 weeks. But if that seems too soon for you, do every 4 to 5 days for 3 weeks. So we're going to share a flow chart with you we're not going to do it right now. We were going to do it right now, but we're not going to do it right now. We're just going to share that with you in an email. You can see that flow chart. And again, this is just really helpful. The bottom line is if you want to be fully funded, you're going to have to lead people all the way through the process, and follow-up is a part of that. Okay.
Deb,
Yeah.
we're going to keep going. We're top of the hour, so some of you may need to leave. I'm going to put in the chat a link to meet with one of our coaches, Benny. It's just a free, let's see, I think I put the wrong one. I'm putting the wrong one. It's just a free scheduled assessment. And so you've filled out that questionnaire. We've gone through a lot about timeline and all kinds of things. You can meet with Benny and just kind of tell him what you're thinking and kind of have somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of and talk with him about whether or not coaching would be a good investment for you for this particular season. So really encourage you to do that. And just want to let you know that that's available. So click on that link and find a time that works for you. And maybe it's not for this next week, but feel free to, on our website, there's a schedule a free assessment. So a month, 2 months before you leave, or something along those lines, or as you're planning a few weeks prior, click, go schedule a free assessment. We'd love to help you in that way. Okay, Deborah.
Do you want to take time for reflection, or do you want to do question and answer? What are you thinking?
Question and answer. So
Okay, let's do some question answer. All right, Miriam, what do we have? I can't
Yep.
see anything.
Okay, so
What
we
do got?
have a couple of questions. So we've got if we know our HMA in advance and need to be in 3 locations across the country, first of all, I'm sorry about that. Should we contact people more than 3 weeks in advance of our arrival to the area? That seems short notice, or is it just churches that need to be way in advance, but individuals, too much time, lead time is harder to schedule? So do you see what she is being asked here?
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
I don't know. Go ahead, Marianne. Why don't
I would
you?
just say, this is what I always say, you know your people, you know your network. So communicate with them, because in the way that you know is best. If you think 3 weeks is not enough notice for your people to meet with and to schedule things out, then contact them beforehand. So I would say there's a lot of discernment that goes on there. I would say definitely not, like, what is it? 3 weeks would be the minimum
Mhm.
that you would want to
I will
have
say
contact
this,
people.
that when you get closer, like let's say you're just a few days before you're landing in a location, don't give up on meetings. There are those people that are going to be last minute, or they haven't responded. And now it's like, okay, I need to respond because they're going to be here in a few days. So don't stop, trying to schedule those meetings, and if you want to and have the time, even reach out to people when you land. I find that if you're in a location for a specific shorter period of time, people that gives people a kind of an urgency. Okay, whether I'm going to meet with them or not, because there's only a few days or a week or 2 weeks. So, but don't give up on trying to schedule things just before you land in a certain location, or even depending on how long you're there, while you're there. So there's that.
Yeah, and I would also say too, it might be helpful for you, if you've got 3 churches, to plan those visits first and have those nailed down, because churches are much harder to get with than individuals, and then plan those individual visits around when you know you're going to be at those hub churches.
Yeah, that's good. I've got another one. What if we need to fundraise for ourselves, but also for the 2 or 3 projects that we are running?
Gosh. My brain is overloaded to answer
Good
that.
question, but those projects may or may not be able to be executed if you're not there.
Yeah. Okay, so this is where segmenting comes into play. I think I would just segment your list into who you want to invite to give to what, basically. Because projects can be a one-time expense, you may want to think about people who you would invite to give a special gift. We don't call them one-time gifts because they could be recurring, or you could ask them for more than once. So a special gift, and you focus your reaching your monthly goal with monthly partners. But the only thing that I can say is, um, segment that list according to what you're going to invite somebody to consider giving toward. That anybody else?
Yeah, I was gonna say run reports too and see who's given special gifts to anything and invite those people, back, see what you asked them to give toward and I think Russell's right. Know your people. The other thing is, some of this could be done from the field. If you're on the field, like tax refund season is coming up, you could do like a tax refund campaign or something and invite people to give off of that toward those projects. But asking people to increase their giving is like the number one best thing that you can do to gain more funding without adding more partners. And those people are, if anybody is committed to the success of the mission, it's those people who are already heavily invested in it. So every few years, it's great to invite people to increase.
Can we do a couple more questions? We got some more in the chat.
Oh, we can go as long as you want.
Okay. Thank you gifts for partners from the country where you serve. Is it necessary? It's nice for big donors, but not everyone. Yeah, I mean, I have some thoughts. If you have if you have a lot of partners, that just might not be doable to give a thank you gift to everyone. I do think that a handwritten card and a connection is really powerful. So personally, I don't think that you need to be giving gifts to every single person. I think what is meaningful to them is that a card and an actual thank you, that personal touch. Big donors, that would be, yeah, up to you. But I think that's a better way to go, probably just your top 5, maybe. What do you guys think?
You know, the gift that I would want the most from somebody in a different country is an ornament or something that could be used as a Christmas ornament. What, Deb?
That's what I was gonna say.
I was
Mallory
gonna
brought
say
me
that
back this
too.
little Japanese little girl from Japan, little geisha girl. I love it. It's like, I was like, I don't know if that cost her $1 or $2. I love it. It's right at the top of my Christmas tree. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I have ornaments from all the places that I've traveled. It is so fun to tell the stories of those. And, yeah, to tell the
And it
story.
reminds you to pray for that person, right?
Yeah.
Like when I see that, I pray for Japan when I put it on my tree.
Okay. So number one gift idea, ornaments,
Christmas ornament.
or something that could be used as an ornament. Like there are some things that something I got from Laos when I served there, and it wasn't a Christmas ornament, but I just took it and put a string on it and put it on the tree. So
Love that. Okay, are there any ideas or sessions on raising funds from the field? As my wife and child don't have green cards to the States and it's hard to leave them for such long times, we are transitioning from tent making to full-time fundraising.
let me see. I'm just checking our website.
Probably have a webinar on that,
Yeah,
but
there's something
connect
called
with us.
there's
Connect with us.
I'll put the link in the chat. You can check out our YouTube channel if you just search Tailored Fundraising in the on YouTube. But here is a link to the workshops that we have available just on our website. One is called How to Fundraise in a Virtual World. That might be helpful for you because you'll be doing fundraising virtually. So,
And also Benny's link for that free session.
yes.
Definitely use it.
Yep.
How much is reasonable to try to raise in just 5 weeks?
That
Well,
depends on your network.
oh.
What else?
Yeah, it really depends on your network. And
Well, it's an interesting question too, right? Because one of the most effective strategies is asking for increases. But sometimes like you've got partners at $25 a month that you want to ask to increase, and they may go to $50 a month. So that's a $25 increase. Whereas with a new partner, you might be able to invite them to a $100 gift. So it just really depends on your network and who you're asking from and
If
what
you
you're
have
asking for.
5 weeks, you definitely want to have meetings where you've qualified those people and you're meeting with people who are interested in giving, that short amount of time.
Last one, this is a really long one. I have all of my Sundays scheduled for my entire HMA, which is 1 year, because I was insane and over contacted churches to come visit. I am only 4 months into my year and I have around 500 new contacts. That's awesome. many of whom have checked the box of interest in supporting as individuals. I don't have time to follow up with them, certainly not meet with them in person. How do I engage with them and get them to partner without spending time that I don't have? Just an email or a follow-up, or is there a better way to encourage them? First of all, well done
Yeah,
on
what a
the
problem.
contacts. Wow, I mean, that is a problem to have, right? That's like the best kind of problem. I have too many contacts.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Um, first of all, schedule that time with Benny. Figure that out specific for you, but in general, um, Marianne and Deb will answer that question for you.
I might also think, who can you delegate some of your ministry responsibilities to so that you can get with those people? Because if they've indicated interest, I would say, like, if you possibly can, it's really important to try to meet with those people if you can, or maybe a couple of those people know each other and you could do a group meeting with them. You could meet them over Zoom too. Like, don't
I was
forget,
gonna
they
say,
don't all have to be in person, you
yeah,
know?
Yeah.
Zoom is a 30-minute conversation as opposed to in person. You're traveling, and that could be an hour or 2 hours, depending on how long you just want to, chill. But a Zoom call, just says automatically this is going to be a shorter,
Mhm.
you
Or
know,
phone call. I had one guy who literally, like, was in the same boat. He was with an organization where he had lots of churches, and his son drove him everywhere, and they like traveled the country, and he would just be on the phone in the car with people, talking to them on the way. So he was maximizing his time and talking with people that didn't have to be a face to face. He just did it over the phone. Lots of success that way.
Yeah.
also group by geography, because you may be surprised where they're grouped. And if you are for, yeah, you may be surprised that you could meet with. But yeah, if they've indicated they're interested in financial giving, you need a personal conversation, as short as it's going to be.
Mhm. Yeah. Last one's, I think, how do you get churches to actually support you? Someone said that they have 40 churches. I've never been able to get support from churches that I've not been a part of. Um, Schedule a time with Benny to have that short little meeting. Um, I mean, I have some clients who I have given, we have done a church packet, which is materials that we suggest people utilize. It's a really good packet. They've put it together and then they've cold called. They've cold called like 20, 30 churches with this packet and then have done the follow-up. Um, Cold calling, obviously, your return on investment is not going to be as great, but I have had clients that have cold called 20 churches and it got 4 partners. No, that's 4 church partnerships from,
I'm very shocked at that. But even if you did 20 and you got one
yeah,
major monthly partner, I mean, there's also, if you, I'm going to put it in there again on our website in the workshop section. Building church partnerships is one of the workshops you can watch. Gives you every single detail of what to do with building church partnerships.
And if your church is in a denomination, sometimes like having advocates in the denomination, like the pastor can refer you to other pastors.
Right.
Sometimes if your organization has a missions arm to it, that's great. They can refer you again, like this, we're in the PCA, MTW is our missions sending agency, and church, if they know you're with MTW, there you go like right to the top of the list. So that could also be, if
Yeah.
your denomination has a missions arm, that's helpful.
Can I just say that having a coach when you're in a focused time of fundraising is going to make it incredibly more fruitful. It just is, and you might be thinking, um, yeah, I can't afford that, but you probably can't afford not to do it, because you're not going, there's no risk. You're going to raise more funding with a coach, with having a coach. So there you go.
I would say too, your comment to the PCA isn't interested in outside. I would say that's not true because I've been involved in PCA churches my whole adult life, and we have lots of people with lots of different organizations. But what I will say is it's almost like you have to know somebody in the church to get you in.
Right.
Right. So there's the connection. So I would not say that is that that is true, that the PCA is not interested, because we have several people that are not with MTW in
Yeah.
all of the churches I've been at.
Yeah, and honestly, you're saying I don't want to assume that I don't know your experience, but when you say people aren't interested, that is a lot of our coaching experience is people aren't interested because of these things. And there may be a lot more reasons than just they're from a specific denomination. It could be how you're engaging with them, what you're saying, all kinds of things. What else we got?
That is it.
Man, it's been really great. We've covered so much, as we normally do in a workshop. So grateful that you have been with us, and we love serving alongside you. Ward, when your questionnaire asks if I was interested in a coach, you only had the answers yes or no. The questionnaire was, do you want to schedule a time with a coach? Okay, in the chat, I need another option. I would be interested at this time.
There should have been a Calendly link in there if you
Yeah,
answered yes.
Calendly right on it, but you can do two things. One, you can go to our website to schedule a free assessment. There's a button at the bottom right-hand corner to find a time that works for you. I think that's what you're saying. Other thing is, just if you're not ready to schedule assessment, just wait and you can schedule assessment when you want. If that's not what you mean, then you can contact us through our contact form or Russell, RUSSELL at tailoredfundraising.com. That sounded like an infomercial. I really liked that. So anyway, you are all so welcome. And okay, you need Ward, last name Ward, several months down the road. You can schedule something several months down the road, I think. If you can't, just wait a little bit and then come back and schedule it. So, all right, friends, we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Good to be with you.
Thanks, everybody.